Okay, let's take a look at track motion. What is track motion? Well, if you click on the track motion button here next to your video track timeline, it says track motion animates a video track over tracks that are below it in the track list. Use track motion to create fly-in and picture-in-picture effects. Now, what I like to use track motion for is to add lower third graphics in various positions. So first I want to get my video right here and add a video track on top of it. Do that by Control-Shift-Q. I've got a video track, and I'm going to drag these 4 lower third graphics and spread them out over the timeline. These are email snippets that I've taken from actual emails, and I want them to pop in at the bottom of the screen during my Q&A show. So how I do that is I put them into place, and then I go over here to the track motion button and I click on it. And the first thing I'm going to do is click on the sync cursor button seen here. I click on it. Notice my keyframe cursor pops into position. It now matches my timeline cursor, so if I were to move one around, the other one moves with it. Or if I click on these graphics below here, notice the keyframe cursor snaps into place. So what I do is I put my cursor on the timeline at the beginning of each graphic, and then I move them into position by clicking on the box up here in track motion and just dragging them into the right spot. Notice the keyframe pops into position right there, and I'm going to do that for each graphic. Click at the beginning of the graphic, move it into position. Click at the beginning of the graphic, move it into position. Beginning of the graphic, move it in position. You might wonder why I'm moving them all over in weird spots, and I just want to illustrate something right here. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go back and play through the timeline just to check how they look, and all of a sudden the graphics are now traveling across the screen in various directions. And why is this happening? Well, it's because the program is interpolating the position of the graphic between keyframes because you didn't tell it not to. So in order to turn this off or to fix this, I'm going to go back up here into my keyframe timeline and right click on these keyframes and then select hold. Or I can just do a control click so they're all activated at once, and then right click and hold. Now when I play through them, notice they're locked into position because there is no interpolation going on, and they're actually held in the spot that I told them to be at via each keyframe. So that fixes that problem. Now you might ask yourself, would I ever want to turn off sync cursor? And the answer is yes, and I'll show you why. I'm going to turn off or delete some of these graphics right here and then remove the hold on this one. So let's say you want to animate this graphic. Let's say you want to move it to the center of the screen during the length of time it's on the screen. So while sync cursor is still on, I'm going to click at the end of the graphic, but notice the preview has now disappeared. So even if I were to move it around like so, I can no longer see where it is on the screen. So what I want to do is turn off sync cursor so that the keyframe cursor stays in position right here. I'm actually going to delete this keyframe that I just created. Now that sync cursor is off, but the keyframe cursor is in the same position, I can now go down here and click on the left arrow key. It'll take me back 1 frame. And then notice the graphic appears on the screen. It's now previewed, so I can move it around like I did before. But now I can see where it is, so I can put it in the right position. The keyframe pops into place. And now when I animate it by playing through it on the timeline, it goes exactly where I told it to go. So that's why you would want to turn off sync cursors if you would want to animate something and see where you wanted it to end up. Now the last thing I want to share with you is this composite mode up here. Let's say you wanted to create some kind of a graphic in a 3D position instead of just 2D. You click on source alpha and change it to 3D source alpha. Now you can actually move your graphic in 3D space on the X, Y, and Z axis. In fact, if you've seen my shows where I have something on the blinds next to me at kind of a 3D angle, this is exactly how I do it. And it's something probably a lot of you know about already, but some people might not know how to activate it because it's not real obvious. If I want to turn it off, I just go back to source alpha. And of course, at any time, if you want to return your graphic to its original position, you just click on this drop-down menu and select default, and it should help fix the problem. So those are just some quick track motion tips. I hope you can use them. These are the ones I use most often. If you'd like to see more Sony Vegas tips, please check the playlist link down below in the description. And thanks for watching.